And we are off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it all happen, and the community that pushes this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspirational, and creative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with none other than Chef Tim Evans. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you very much.
For those of you that don't know, Chef Tim is the head chef here at Cascade Room in Vancouver. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Tim for a few years now and kind of watching his career from afar. Started at, I think, selling him vinegars a few years ago. At the restaurant Sienna. I believe that was our first interaction.
I think a crew before that. Maybe.
Oh, a crew before that. You're right.
Yeah,
exactly.
You were
So
with
Pharmat.
Yeah.
Way back when. So I've had the pleasure of kind of watching Tim grow with his craft here locally in the city, and finding us here sitting down today, which is an absolute pleasure. So thank you, Tim, for making time. I really appreciate it, as I know you're extremely busy. Father, partner, head chef.
Yeah, I'm trying to start a little side project as well.
Yeah, so, entrepreneur as well,
yeah.
Which we'll get to, which is amazing. So fill in the blanks there for everyone listening, kind of how you came to be here today in the role that you have with the Cascade Room and this group, but also how you got into food originally. How did this all start?
I think I kind of got into food like most cooks, almost accidentally. I'm one of the people that never really figured out what I wanted to do kind of with life.
Yeah.
I always had jobs kind of working as a young kid as a dishwasher in pubs and things back in the UK. And yeah, literally just kind of progressed. So it starts off a weekend work. Then you, once you left school and you kind of go to college or whatever.
Right.
After that, it's kind of, okay, you know, I'm going to take a little bit of an easy year. You end up working in a kitchen, which obviously isn't easy, but yeah. And then from there, it's just kind of progressed and gone through. So I ended up going back to kind of cooking school and
where did you do cooking school?
I did that in the UK, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereabouts is that?
So I went to Gloucester, which is the Gloucestershire College of Arts and Technology.
Okay.
And then also when I came out here, I attended VCC.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and then moved.
How did the two compare? Were they different, quite different, or very similar?
They were quite similar in a lot of ways. A lot of it's kind of classic French training.
Right.
But yeah, no, they were great, and VCC was really good.
What is it about classic French? Because a lot of times when I hear people that go the educational route with their cooking, it seems that French seems to be the backbone for a lot of that education. Why is that?
It is. I mean, they were the first country really to organize kind of cooking into brigade systems and having different sections in the kitchen. And then, it teaches you how to make things like a mayonnaise and dressings and all the basic things that people don't really think about as having to learn in the kitchen. It's that's all. Majority of those are all French techniques. And
so when you've been traveling around cooking at different restaurants that you've cooked in, do you look at a menu or look at a dish and do you automatically see its influence? And is it mostly French, or is there always underlying some sort of French inspiration with a dish?
Yeah, I mean, from anything from like vinaigrettes and things, I mean, they all had a French beginning. So I mean, even if it has nothing in there that is a French ingredient, I think there's always some kind of history there, or how that kind of cuisine got there. Obviously, Vancouver is a huge Asian influence here and things, so gets to work with a lot more kind of flavors out here and things. But I think a lot of the techniques, especially in the higher end restaurants, still have their base in
the backbone
in French cooking. Yeah,
cooking. Amazing. Speaking about locally and how the local influence impacts menus that we see here in Vancouver, how do you find at the Cascade? I mean, obviously this isn't an Asian eatery, but how do you find the local delicacies and the local culture affects a menu here, which again it really isn't an Asian space?
No, I mean it's great. I mean, there's ways to use things. I mean, I think that definitely with certain ingredients now they've become part of West Coast cooking. I think that's definitely part of how Vancouver's carved itself out in the food scene. With the Cascade, we're a little bit more of a play on the kind of that British pub anyway. So it's but there's ways to tie in certain things, and with local suppliers, I mean they're great. The big thing I found here was the seasons are a little bit shorter, I find, than in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So things like strawberries and things that will be coming in soon. I mean, really, it's kind of sometimes with some suppliers it can be 3 or 4 weeks and they're gone, and you don't see them again for a year. So it's a matter of using kind of what you can quickly and get it before anybody else can get it. And
wow.
And go from there.
How do you deal with something like products and the short seasons that they have? I mean, as a consumer, when I go to the grocery store, I'll be the first to admit I'm buying mangoes in January and I'm buying kiwis in February. But as a chef putting together a menu and wanting to put something together on a plate, do you force yourself to stick to what is fresh and in season, or at times are you serving the equivalent to a mango in December?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'd be able to run a restaurant like Cascade if you literally just stuck to local seasons.
Right.
It wouldn't work out. I mean, what we try and do is when the local seasons come in is really focus on those, hit them hard on things like fresh sheets, features. We
Right.
can get them on the menu while they last. Things like UBC and farms like that, they have such a great abundance of squash, which I know that that'll last us kind of 4 or 5 months. We can buy enough in, it will keep.
Right.
With the local fresh berries and things, I think you've just got to use them when you can use them.
Right.
And if we end up doing a wedding party or a function that the guests would like strawberries and things, I mean, well, I'm more than happy to go and get them the strawberries. It's
Right.
just they're not going to be coming
Right.
from a local farm. So
And do you find that the quality is noticeable? Obviously, being in what you do, tasting food daily, and doing it with purpose. If you were to sit down and have a strawberry that was local and in season, as opposed to say a strawberry from California, can you pick that up right away? The difference?
yes, definitely. I think there's a huge difference. There's a difference in the texture.
Right.
I think if you go and find strawberries from California or Mexico, they normally have a lot more of a crunch to them.
Okay.
That's just where they've had to be picked underripe and then ripened on the way to the store.
So consumer tip: if your strawberries are crunchy, they're probably picked too early.
Yeah, or just very cold.
Or very cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, normally here with local strawberries and things, I mean, by the time they come in, they're soft. You can almost taste where the sun's ripened them, as opposed to them if they've been ripened in a container or.
It's amazing to me, like when I eat fruit like that is ripe and you can tell it's just from miles away. It's something very nostalgic about that.
Yeah.
That bite and that flavor and the mouthfeel and all those things.
Yeah.
Do you ever try to create nostalgia with the plates that you have on the menu or on the fresh sheets? Is that ever an inspiration for you?
Definitely, I think with here with the British side, I mean, being obviously English myself and getting to work in an English pub in Vancouver, a lot of it is I guess myself trying to relive kind of memories that I've had. We have a lot of obviously the British owners here as well, and even with the Australian owners, there's a lot of crossovers with the British cooking.
Yeah.
So we just try and do things simply. Things like our Sunday roast here and things are incredibly popular. And I think even if someone hasn't been to England, you can kind of get on the back of that and support that a little bit. I mean, everybody likes, Yorkshire pudding, roast beef, and
Amazing. If you haven't tried the Sunday roast, definitely get down here. If you're in the local area, get down and see what they can do, because it is absolutely amazing. Speaking of teaming up with the ownership team here at the Cascade Room, how did that come to be?
They all kind of have a tie-in together. So, myself with the team. So I was working for another company, and then I felt like I'd really outstayed and grown my time with them, and just wanted a challenge. So when I applied for Cascade, it was just something I was looking to have a little bit more fun, coming out of the fine dining scene and into I'm trying to think of what I guess a style of cooking that was a little bit more to my heart, maybe. And if I was honest, this is the style of cooking that I like to do. And so
it was a natural
the Cascade
fit.
Room was a natural fit. It's just down the road from where I live. I mean, it's the whole British inspired.
Right. Like you said, working at a British pub in Vancouver, it couldn't get more perfect from a guy from the UK.
Exactly. Good beer, good food.
So where is home for you over in the UK? Where were you born?
It's a small Cotswold town called Winchcombe.
Winchcombe.
Yeah, which is in Gloucestershire. So closest big town to us is Cheltenham.
Okay.
Known for its racecourse.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been here 15 years now.
So this is home
years.
for you?
This is home for me now. Yeah, definitely.
And your partner, your wife?
My wife, yeah.
Is she from the UK as well?
No, she's from Vancouver.
Yes.
Born and bred, yeah. So she's, we actually live next door to where she was
Are you serious?
Yeah. So,
oh my God, I had no idea.
So, yeah. Very
That's
close
amazing.
to the mother-in-law. So.
Not to make this all about strawberries and love, but how did you two meet then?
We met in a bar.
Oh, okay.
So she was working, I was a customer.
Oh, wow.
I guess I'd had a few too many beers, was feeling confident, and I thought, I'd try my luck, and it worked out.
My dad always says, rich and invisible.
Yeah.
You've had too much to drink when you feel rich and invisible.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, obviously it's paid off for you guys.
Yeah.
And that's so cool that you're literally next door to where she grew up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I live next door to my mother-in-law.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super convenient.
Yeah.
Super
Really,
convenient.
really handy. Yeah.
So if we were to take a trip to your hometown and we were to go to the local watering hole and dine, what would we find on the menu?
You'd find definitely the roasts and things. A lot of like local game. We have a big castle up in Winchcombe called Sudeley Castle, which is its claim to fame is where Catherine Parr lived. That's Henry VIII's last wife. The one that actually outlived him.
Right.
And they do a lot of local lamb, ducks, different game bird, pheasants and things. So yeah, it's really, really simple cooking.
Yeah.
Really good ingredients. Everything's kind of grass fed.
Oh, wow. So they've been doing the organic, beyond organic thing before it was a thing.
Yeah, before it's a thing. I think if lots of these small kind of Cotswold towns do. I mean, it's very normal to go to a farm and there's cows in the field eating grass, which isn't always the case now. But it seemed like growing up, that was everything that I was kind of brought up with was locally fed, locally kind of grazed. And
how often do you get back there?
Normally about every 2 years.
Okay, so your parents are still there?
Yeah, the parents are both still there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when you go, are you excited by not only going home, but the food as well? Is that something you look forward to?
I do. I love to go to the pub, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's a culture it's a little bit lost, I think, in Vancouver.
Definitely.
I've not really seen much of the rest of Canada, but
right.
Yeah, it's a little bit different there. But it seems to be most of the junk stuff I miss. Which seems weird.
Meaning like hobnobs and...
Exactly, all that weird stuff that I kind of have this like vision in my head that it's going to be great, and then I have one and I get really disappointed, and I don't try one again for another 4 years, and then I crave one again, and it's gone, just goes around in circles.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I spent 2 years living overseas and 2 years living in London, and I understand now, having lived there and left, that London isn't an indication of what the UK is. There's a lot more to offer, like the small towns that you're from.
Yep.
But one thing I did notice and appreciate there was something you just spoke to, was that social aspect of going down to the pub after work or going down to the pub on a Sunday for the Sunday roast. What is it about the UK that seems to organically allow for that to happen and doesn't happen here? And I'm from the East Coast of Canada, so I've been coast to coast, and I can tell you that it doesn't. Maybe in small silos, like small groups of friends, but I think it's like a general sweeping thing in the UK. Why is that it's so successful there and seems to not be a thing here?
Yeah. I don't know. I think my guess would be probably it's just the history we have. It's definitely installed kind of generation to generation. That I remember going and sitting in a pub when I was a kid and being out in the like the beer garden playing.
Right.
Where my parents would maybe have a drink or meet friends and things. And I think, especially small towns, it goes back. There's one thing we have in small towns, and that's a lot of churches and a lot of pubs.
Right.
And I think that when people didn't have TVs or any kind of entertainment, radio and things, that people tended to gravitate to these two different places.
Right.
And I think it kind of attracted either one kind of person in the village or maybe another kind of person to somewhere else. And it's, that's where I think it comes from originally.
Do you think it's, speaking to Vancouver specifically, do you think it's a bit of people are too health conscious? They don't want to have the beer every day? Or is it just we lack that, as you kind of talked about the history, we're still a very young country. We're just too young? Yeah.
I don't think it's that people don't drink, because I think I see like about as kind of the same amount of people drinking here as I did back in the UK. I think a lot of it is to do with how alcohol's perceived out here.
Right.
It's very common in the UK to go and take a bottle of wine with a picnic and go and sit on the beach and we'll have something in the park and while the kids play.
Right.
And it looks upon as completely normal and almost like a healthy kind of way to spend time. Whereas here, I mean, if you're caught out in a park with a beer, everybody thinks you're an alcoholic, you're a wino. What are you doing? So I think the liquor laws here are a lot stricter. And yeah, I'm going to say it's different, I guess. I wouldn't agree with a lot of them.
Very politically correct just to say different. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate observation, is the laws don't really allow for us to be as quote unquote free. But I think part of the issue is, not to make this about politics or about countries and differences, but from my time in the UK and being a Canadian, I just feel like we are so young as a country. Yep. And I think there's fear associated with, if we give them an inch, meaning you can take your wine to the park, they're going to take a foot. Yep. And they're going to start abusing it. And I think it's because we are so young that there's potential that people would abuse it. And that's probably why we don't see as social. I mean, it'd be amazing if right now the doors were open to the Cascade room and there were people on the sidewalk drinking and socializing, right? Which you see in the UK all the time. You see it mostly with the pubs now, especially since the smoking ban. It was never allowed before, but now they let you kind of stand out the front and have a drink and a cigarette if that's what you want to do. Right. For me, it's just, I think the big thing I miss is things like beer gardens and things, being able to just
go outside the back of a pub, sit in a garden, choose where you want to sit when you're out there. There's just benches around.
Right.
It's all, you can't wander off into the street with your beer. That's still not legal.
Yeah.
But as long as it's contained and it's a little bit more civilized, I guess, rather than...
Is there anywhere local that you, besides the Cascade Room, is there anywhere local that you find has a bit of that je ne sais quoi that you get back home, or no?
The alibi room, I think.
Alibi room?
I think that's definitely definitely has a British vibe. I know that's another English owner, Nigel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that definitely the English boys are doing it.
Yeah.
You're right.
So they're creating that environment probably on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're trying to, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a place for that too. I think
it's definitely a place.
I think it's a very social way to drink, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
A lot of times
it's social drinking as opposed to having to. I think when you restrict things too much, sometimes you put it into a class where people not have to get silly, but they tend to get silly because they're sneaking around, they're doing something, they're walking around with half a bottle of vodka in a Slurpee, rather than just being allowed to have a normal drink.
Yeah.
And
although no one in the UK is drinking vodka in a Slurpee, are they?
Well, I don't think you can find Slurpees. Maybe slush puppy, maybe.
So bring us up to today, where we're at with you at the Cascade Room. What does an average day for you look like? You've been here now for how long?
I've been here for 5 years now.
5 years. So 5 years in, obviously you know the kitchen like the back of your hand.
Yep.
Day to day, what does it look like from start to finish for you?
It can vary. I have an admin day normally on a Tuesday, which is
perfect.
Which is today. That's why we're talking. But yeah, generally it goes in. First thing I would do is look over the prep list, turn everything on, check fridges and things, make sure everything's kind of running well. If the general manager Justin is in early, we kind of liaise and sit down and make a plan. And then apart from that, my day starts with prepping. Then we have other staff will come in throughout the day. Because we are open later here.
Right.
It's not so I have the whole kitchen arriving at the same time, like with other restaurants I've worked in.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has to kind of be scheduled, and so we can be prepping, coming up with the features for the day. Normally I do that a couple of days ahead of time. There's at least an idea in my head of what I want, and then it'll go through everything from placing orders, prepping the line, doing service.
So you do find yourself still on the line?
Yep. I'm still on the line here normally at least 3 days a week.
What days are those?
Normally it's the weekend, so
weekends.
Normally be Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Busier ones.
Right.
Normally with the slower ones gives me a little bit of a chance to prep some other items coming up or start on functions.
Right.
We do some weddings, do some private events and things.
So if you want to see Chef Tim in action, see him on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday with his head down all night, I'm assuming.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Not looking at anybody.
Are you one of those chefs? Because I haven't seen you too much in it. Like in the weeds, as you will. Are you one of those chefs that does the stereotypical Gordon Ramsay shouting, throwing plates?
No, not at all.
So how do you run a service?
Pretty much, it's just communication. It's I think especially with the Cascade Room, because I'm not a fine dining kind of institution or one of the big guys I guess to work for in the city.
Right.
You have to treat staff very differently. I don't have a big lineup of people kind of applying on a daily basis like somebody like Hawksworth or somebody would do.
Right.
I used to be a little bit of a shouter with other jobs I've had and I've run, and I just decided when I was here, I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy what I do. I want other people to enjoy coming to work.
Right.
I don't want anybody to be afraid of me. I've worked in places before where people don't tell you things because they're afraid of the reaction. They'd rather kind of try and hide it, and I don't want that. That's when problems kind of happen in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just talking. If somebody's in the weeds, like we literally slow things down until they're back up. I'll step across, help out.
And have you found that approach has been received well by your staff? Do you find it's better retention with cooks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because again, because the nature of the restaurant we're at, we have people that here that want to be cooks and want to learn, and then we have the people that are here ready for a part-time job.
Right.
And they're very honest with that, which is fine. They're just as important as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's just identifying who those people are,
right.
Spending the time with the people that want to learn more, and then just supporting the people that are kind of here to make a little bit of money but don't necessarily want to be cooks.
Right. Is that an issue for you? I know a few other people that I've sat down with in this city in particular. Staffing seems to always be coming up, whether front of house or back of house. So is staffing an issue for you? And if so, how do you guys mitigate that?
Staffing is a huge problem. There's no choice now. So when you're trying to hire somebody, you're taking them on the basis that someone's shown up for an interview.
Right.
I'd say probably 9 out of 10 times now, and it sounds really high figures, but it's not exaggerated at all. I'll plan interviews with people. They won't show up, or they'll do the interview. You set up a shift for them, and then they won't show up to the shift.
God.
And that happens. That's constant. So that's super, super hard.
It makes me feel old when I say, like, I would never have done that back in my day.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
I think that, I don't know anybody that would, especially our age. It just seems to be that now, I think, maybe that's one of the bad things about the social media side and being able to kind of cop out of things, and things are done by text now. And you don't have to have a face-to-face contact with somebody. You can send an email, you can send a text message.
Right.
Whereas before, when I started out cooking 20 odd years ago, you would literally knock on somebody's door, look them in the eye and hand them a resume, as opposed to now everything's kind of emailed in, or there's no kind of accountability.
And you probably beg them for a job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone begging you to come on.
Exactly. No, it's begging people to come in and work.
So once you have someone that actually shows up for their shift or shows up for their interview first, and then you hire them, they show up for their shift, what is done, or what do you do above and beyond your regular duties? What are you doing to make sure that they, if it's in their visions and in their best interest, to stick around? Like, how do you facilitate that? How do you grow that?
I mean, I think obviously everybody's getting paid a little bit better now. Vancouver's a really hard one. I don't obviously own a restaurant, but I see on a daily basis now what's the salary bill is at on a day, and the rents go up for the owners and things. So I mean, everybody's kind of struggling at this point in the city. I think cooks are paid more now, and quite rightly so. I mean, we did years and years and years of being told that we had to kind of make nothing because of our passion in the industry, and it's it's a little bit equal now. So I think. Equal?
No,
that's a word.
It's a word now.
Okay, cool.
It's a word now.
We'll claim it.
Yeah.
So I think the money definitely helps now. It's finding out what people want to do and what they want to learn when they're here. A lot of times I find it easier to find somebody that wants to work 3 or 4 days a week and doesn't necessarily want to be full time.
Okay.
There's a lot of people have a lot of kind of side hobbies, side businesses. We have a lot of artists that come in the kitchens and things because they can do their thing during the day and come to work in the evening. Right.
And are you finding the talent pool is rich with skill? Like, are the people that you need to really watch, or people are able to come in and kind of step into the roles you need them to?
It's a lot of watching. I think that the skill level now is not what it was.
Right.
I think that's just less people going into the industry. And I also think there's a lot more restaurants in Vancouver. Every kind of a few months, something else pops up.
Right.
So I think right now it's just a matter of training people on the job when they come in.
Right.
It's trying to train quick. It's to find out what they want to do. I mean, it's a matter of just hands-on learning with a lot of people, making sure they're comfortable and trying to support them.
So do you find that your job now is different than it was 5 years ago? It's because you're not only a head chef, but you're like a recruiter, you're a trainer, everything else, just to manage the team. Is it above and beyond what you thought your role was going to be, or what it was?
Yeah, it's very different. Right now, I think sometimes it's a little difficult because it can be less about the cooking, more about kind of problem solving, I guess. When you've got a full team and things are going right, it's great. You can concentrate on the food and everything goes out perfectly. But when you're losing, you have 2 guys short and you only run a 3-team kitchen, it can be a little bit tricky. So then you're starting to worry about, we have a lot of there can be some substance abuse issues and things within the city and that kind of stuff, which is also, again, it's working in a big city.
Right.
Those problems are there, but it seemed to be a lot more open and accepted to talk about now. But because they are spoken about a lot more, there's obviously a lot more problems to fix because of them as well.
Do you find that this industry lends itself to a little bit more abuse as well when it comes to drugs and alcohol? Is that something that you're exposed to or have been exposed to in the past?
I think that probably, I would say at least half of the industry probably has some kind of addiction issue, or mental health issue, I should say. It's incredibly high. Yeah.
Why is that, do you think? What about this industry attracts those people, or why are we somewhat fostering those personalities?
I think it's always been kind of the misfits that are fitted in kitchens generally anyway. It's even, we're talking back in like the 80s and things, when you used to have like the big abusive kitchens where people were hit and screamed out on a daily basis and things. I think that there's still that family element to a kitchen. And, I've had, chefs scream at me all day long, but as soon as you're done service, and they switch back on the nice guy and, thanks so much, guys, I couldn't have done it without you. And you feel like you've achieved something and gone kind of through this big battle with your friends and things. And I guess it's like an abusive relationship, right? I mean, it's, everybody should walk away sometimes, but yeah.
But they don't.
But they don't. And I think that's also, sorry, I was going to say with the substance abuse issues and things, I think a lot of that is a Vancouver thing as well.
Right.
I think it's very readily available here. And I think that kind of with the some of the local government and issues and things. I mean, a lot of times there's their backs turned on people, and I think that also because we're so desperate for staff right now, things get missed that wouldn't have got missed before.
Right.
When you have 5 or 6 people apply for a job, and one of them might have a drug addiction,
right,
you would tend to kind of skip over them and go for somebody else. Whereas when you have 2 people apply for a job and they both have addiction problems, you tend to take the person with the addiction problem because it's either that or you have no staff. So
wow,
yeah, it's a little.
What is your thoughts on that? And we can kind of put a tail on this kite a bit and talk more about local issues and political issues. What is your thoughts on where we stand as a city? Because obviously you're a taxpayer here, you help run a business here, and I'm assuming you see this every single day. It's something I see all the time too. What do you think is a solution or a potential solution to the problem that is the drug abuse and mental health issues that we have here locally?
I'm honestly, I'm really not sure. I mean, that's the reason I work in a kitchen, I guess, is that I'm not smart enough to solve those problems out.
Come on.
But I mean, it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of support from kind of youth programs all the way up. I mean, there seems to be things for people to do here. But I think that it's just everything's so expensive. And I think that really limits what people can do. It's great that people say, okay, we've got the mountains here. We've got, all these different kind of things. You can go to the gym, you can go to this kind of stuff. Everything costs money. And when you're a young cook and you're making $15 an hour and your rent's $1,500 a month, the math doesn't work out. There's nothing to do. So you're not getting bored. You'll hang out with people. You tend to drink a lot more than you would normally. It's cheaper for you to get a 12-pack of beer and play a video game than it is to
get a vehicle and drive to the North Shore. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, gas is what, $1.62 a liter
crazy
right now, whatever it is. It's nuts. So I think that's a big part of it. And yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a shame. Whatever the problems are, it's something's broken somewhere.
Yeah, not to bring this to like a downer point, but it is something that I see quite often as I drive through the city and travel through the city, and I'm always interested in other people's opinion on kind of what the cause is they think or what the solution may be. But I don't think we're alone. I think most major cities do suffer from the same issue, but I just think there's something unique about Vancouver, and I don't know that the powers that be have an answer right now.
No, I don't think so. I think they're kind of stuck as well. I mean, we had 2 cooks next door at Charlie's when that was open. Yeah. Sadly, both died of fentanyl overdose.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
That was six months apart from each other. So I mean, that's a big loss.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, they at the time, neither of them, they both stopped working with the company. But I mean, when you see people on a daily basis and you talk to them, every few days and things, the restaurant next door, it's really sad that this situation happens. I'm not sure why it happens, but hopefully it can be fixed.
Well, I guess in all seriousness, a little public service announcement. If you need assistance or if you have issues, please reach out to friends or family or an association that is able to help you, because no one should suffer like that. And especially if you find yourself with an employer, please reach out to them as well and see how and if they can help you, because we don't want to lose anyone, but especially members of this unique industry that we're in right now with the hospitality industry. As challenging as it can be, like you said, there's sort of there is a massive sense of camaraderie in this business as well. Yeah, and I think if someone asks for help, I think there's plenty of people there that are more than willing to stop what they're doing to help. So yeah, let's do what we can to resolve that. On a brighter side, let's talk entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
So I was pleasantly surprised, I'm going to say a month ago, maybe 6-8 weeks ago, when I saw a new, well thought out package of beef jerky on my Instagram feed and found out that it was associated with one Chef Tim Evans. So before we started recording, I was kind of picking your brain on that. I didn't want to get too deep into it, but let's dive into it now. Where does the entrepreneurial spirit come from? And 2, why beef jerky?
I think the entrepreneurial spirit comes from, I guess, just wanting to kind of better yourself all the time and maybe progress and have something that feels like it's yours. I mean, for me, I think we spoke earlier, I always wanted a restaurant right now in the city that's just not attainable to me. That's not something that's on the table. Right. By having this, it allows me to at least think I'm doing something that's gonna be mine and hopefully one day would pay off. And
right.
I mean, you're just about to have a baby. I mean, it's amazing how much your life changes when you have a kid. I mean, Jordan, now my son is 3, but you start to do things for them. So you don't look at it as how much you're working, what you're doing. It becomes something that, what can I leave for them, or what can I help them with, so that they're in a better situation than I'm in. So I think that's where it comes from. I've always had ideas, and some of them not the best, and some of them a little crazy. My wife's very level-headed and kind of down to earth, and sometimes says, you know what, this is really stupid. Like, maybe let's think about this a little bit. But, I'm always the crazy one that kind of, okay, I want to do this. Let's try this. Let's do this.
It sounds like me and my partner Lindsay. I'm the creative genius, I'll call myself, and she's the pragmatic one. We'll just say, let's pump the brakes a bit and let's think about buying iceberg water from So I can appreciate that dynamic in the relationship, but I think that's always helpful to have that kind of someone to govern you a little bit. But how did you come to beef jerky? And remind me of the name of the beef jerky.
So the company's called Into the Wild.
Into the Wild. Check them out on social media.
Yes, please do. The idea just came from, it's something that I'd always made biltong.
Okay.
Had a friend of mine, Mark, who I actually met through the company as well, at an event, and he was making jerky.
Okay.
So we just ended up talking, making some stuff together, and ended up saying, this would be really cool if we could kind of do something. Like, there wasn't really a local product that was available. I mean, there's a lot of people doing kind of farmers market style kind of ventures. But I always like to try and think big. I don't want a hobby. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to try and hopefully start something that one day will be big enough to hopefully pay some bills. So that was the whole idea of us trying to start something. There's 3 of us in total that are doing this venture. And then, hopefully something comes out of it.
So where now can consumers locally find the product? So
right now you can find it at the Cascade Room.
Yep.
You can find it at Main Street Brewing Company and at 33 Acres Brewery.
Beautiful.
And we're also selling at Clayton Community Farmers Market in Surrey.
Oh, awesome. And you were mentioning before we got on here that you had your first farmers market this past weekend?
Our first one, yeah. It was actually awesome. Yeah, really good. It
good reception?
It did very well, yeah. Very good reception.
What is it about beef jerky that... I personally love beef jerky. What is it about beef jerky now as opposed to beef jerky 5 years ago is different, and why does it seem to have this certain buzz about it right now? I
think right now it's the first time it's kind of been done properly, and I think in a long time. I think the days of having, I don't know. When I first came out here, we don't really eat a lot of jerky in the UK. So my whole experience of beef jerky was buying it from a gas station, and it was normally in a bright red and black bag that.
Right.
That kind of, I won't say who, but
exactly.
Yeah. And it's full of kind of like, sodium nitrates and nasty stuff. So it's marketed as this kind of, I guess, like a junk food, and it's on the shelves next to the other junk food. So we decided to kind of make a more natural jerky that is all natural ingredients. That is something that, our pepper jerky right now, I think it's 2 or 3 grams of carbs and 25 grams of protein.
Oh, wow.
So it's equivalent to having a protein shake, but it tastes a heck of a lot better than having a powdered drink and things. So
So for all you gym goers out there looking to get jacked up,
exactly.
Just look up, get jacked on jerky. There you go. It's your new marketing. Are you? Do you find yourself really looking at where the beef comes from, or are you more concerned about what you do with it to create the jerky? No,
we're using ranch beef right now. It's all Canadian beef. It's huge, I think, where it comes from. It's people want traceability nowadays.
Right.
So we just try and make sure we're using the best products. Everything in it you can pronounce, where it's from.
Right.
It's not actually just jerky we do. We're actually doing a line of kind of trail mixes and
different
amazing. Flavored nuts and things as well. And the idea is that it's not necessarily... we've marketed it as what we call an active snack. The idea is that it's not just for people that kind of go to the gym and things. It's just if you have that option of maybe grabbing a bag of chips or grabbing a bag of, really nice trail mix with like Swiss chocolate and toasted coconut, or if you want a nice jerky it's going to be better for you.
Right. And are you open to, if anyone's listening, are you open to sitting down with someone from, say, like a Whole Foods or an overweighty group, like the big buyers? Is that something you guys are looking
definitely. At? We're a little bit young right now, I think, in terms of what we can provide. But it's definitely something we'd like to talk about. We've actually been approached by a couple of bigger people already.
Okay.
So we're going to see how that goes.
Nice.
And right
Good
now
for you.
it's just a matter of I guess upping our production.
Yeah.
And seeing what we can do, because it's obviously a part-time job for all of us right now. But hopefully it can take off.
How did the name come to be?
And that was actually Mark's idea. One of my partners. Right. It made a lot of sense. We were thinking, do we do like Vancouver jerky? Do we do East Van jerky? Do we do? And the one idea he had was that if we are thinking big, do we need to we needed like a name that's going to be
Exactly.
just as recognizable, kind of East Coast or in the middle of Canada, or
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to tie us to a location. The idea was as well that it's something a little bit healthier that you can take with you, and if you're going on an adventure and things, it's something to grab. Whether that's walking through downtown Vancouver,
Right.
or you're hiking a mountain, or you're just sitting and watching sports and things. You wanted to have a snack that's accessible to everybody and is delicious and doesn't taste like it's necessarily super good for you,
right?
But it is.
I love that. I love food that is. I always say, and I think it's a terrible way to describe it, but I always like to say unconsciously good. Sorry, unconsciously healthy.
Yeah.
So like you eat food or eat a dish, pardon me, and your mind consciously is thinking, how can this be good for me? You know what I mean? I think that's a beautiful, when you can bring that together for someone as a chef or now as an entrepreneur with a product. I think you've got the market, pardon me, cornered for a lot of people, because if you can add flavor, texture, all those things that like fatty, salty, sugary that we all crave.
Yeah.
But make it so that it's actually healthier than most other snacks. I think you've got it.
Awesome.
You
that's great.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, with the ingredients and things, we sometimes it's just a matter of switching out something. So if you're gonna use kind of salt, we're using Himalayan pink salt now in our cures, and we're using natural cane sugar and things as opposed to being white processed sugar. And it's amazing how much better that is for you than once you start to refine things. Is when it seems to be they've become a lot more unhealthy for you. For sure.
Which is generally cheaper, which is ironic to me. I always find that so ironic. If you have a product that's been produced that's required work to like refine, is cheaper than just the raw product.
Yeah, for sure.
Why is that? That's something that. Why is it that? Not only that, but why is healthier food, whole food? Why is whole food, in your opinion, more expensive than the processed packaged junk?
I mean, I think it's always cheaper to manufacture processed anything, just purely on what it takes to produce it. I mean, if you're looking at like things farmers markets, say, even just a farmer that's growing kind of carrots and that kind of stuff that's organic, and he might be losing 40% of his crop a year to bugs or to kind of a drought, or it could be anything like that. Whereas as soon as you start using pesticides and that kind of things and processing things, like once you've kind of refined sugar and you can get it going through that machine, it's pumping out bags and bags and bags of white refined sugar. It's definitely going to be a lot cheaper for you to be able to do that. Economies of scale, I guess they call it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're putting 30,000 bits of different cows into burgers and grinding them up together, it's a lot cheaper than having somebody cut out a muscle, grind it up, press your burger. So what would be not to keep talking on jerky here, but what would be the ideal cuts for a jerky? So we use eye of round right now, which is one of the leanest muscles. Okay. And that's great. So we just we trim that one. We take as much fat off as we can. Right. We actually run a line of dog jerky as well. Not dog, I shouldn't say dog jerky. Jerky for dogs. Jerky for dogs. Yeah. Okay. Which we use. So that's kind of more of our end cuts. So when we cut the beef, we get the little pieces that aren't perfectly round, and we use that for a product. So you guys not only are health conscious, you are zero waste as well. Zero waste as well, and it's still kind of grass fed, locally ranched beef that your dog's getting. And Yeah, it's good. So are they able to purchase that at the same places that they're purchasing the human edible product? Edible jerky. That one's just available right now at Main Street Brewing Company. Okay. But that's available there. Is your vision with this brand to take it online to like an online store as well and start doing like drop shipments or something along that line? I think we will do online. We still really need to talk about a lot of things. We're still pretty young as far as kind of what we're doing, and sometimes we can change flavors on like the drop of a hat. So we're always working on things right now. I think definitely we'll need a bit of an online presence. Right. But eventually we'd love to find somebody that wants to kind of take us on, whether that's a bigger kind of market that wants to invest in us or something, and then we can go from there. So if you're listening, reach out to Tim through social media and give him all the money for all the jerky. Exactly. Bringing it back a bit to food and kind of this industry that you're in right now and populating here at the Cascade Room. And we don't have to talk about just Vancouver. We can look at it kind of holistically, like worldwide. What do you see happening right now in food that you think is a trend that is going to stick? What has changed over the past 2 years that you think is here to stay with food? I think vegetarianism is growing. Okay. Definitely. I think there's a lot of restaurants now that pop up that are vegetarian restaurants, or at least have a much heavier menu. That's something that we've had to do. Definitely, the Cascade is adapt. Mm-hmm. I think we're really at just over 50% of our menu now is vegetarian. Wow. Which is, going back a few years ago, you'd have had one or two items on the menu to have really kind of appeased a vegetarian person coming in, and that would have been it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that people are a little bit more healthy and conscious of what they're putting in their body.
Right.
I think with a lot of people now, they'd rather eat like a nice quality meat and have it once a week rather than eat junk meat kind of every day. I think that's a very important way to kind of look at things and who to support and pay. Pay a little bit more for your meat. Know where it's coming from. Support somebody who's working hard to try and do it, and then just eat less of it.
So do you try and facilitate that through your menu that you choreograph with your team? Like, are you trying to, obviously you have adapted the menu, like you said, but are you consciously looking at trends when you're sitting down and creating menu items, or are you creating menu items that are like seasonable and cost effective and something you're passionate about? Or is a lot of what drives you as the head chef, is it the trends, what's kind of hot?
A lot of it can be trends. I think that with a place like a pub as well, though. I mean, we want to stay within kind of a small kind of bracket of what we're doing here.
Right.
Comfort food for us is important, but it's a matter of lightening it up. We definitely try and use as many local suppliers as we can. As soon as UBC starts and Soul Food start, we hit those farms up for whatever they have. And I think a lot of times with local suppliers, they almost dictate kind of the ideas you're going to have on your menu anyway, with the availability of what they have.
Right.
So right now it's big with kind of kale, and all the leafy greens are coming in, and radishes, and the baby beets will start showing up and things. And
right.
So you're going to notice a lot more kind of those style of salads and those style of dishes. And we're using a lot of radishes and things in our Sunday roast. And
nice.
Yeah, that kind of style.
What do you think are some trends that you've seen either currently or the past couple of years that you think aren't here to stay?
Pokey was the big one that everyone was doing a few years back. I actually love it, but I think it's a little bit overdone, I think, now.
There's something like 72 just on this street. I think
it's
stores.
Nuts. It's nuts. But I think that's as good as that is, I think, a few of them will stay, but I think that will end up being, a few years ago it was donuts. Everybody was opening to different donut shops and things. I mean, the good companies have stayed, and the ones that weren't so good have kind of faded away now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of when that happens, naturally in business and in the economy, is that you get everyone jumps on an idea, call it Jerky, for example.
Yep.
And then once the consumers have an opportunity to try enough of them, they vote with their dollars, obviously, and then the cream rises to the top, and those are the ones that are left.
Exactly.
So I think that's probably what we'll see with the poke. Although, like you said, I love it. Although I do have my kind of like my ones that I go to.
I'm sure you have your go-to places. Yeah, exactly.
Can we shout out a certain poke place that you like locally?
I actually like Genki Sushi. So they've started doing it. Yeah, so it's called Genki Sushi on Main and 28th. I believe it means happy sushi.
Is it the?
It's got like a yellow little smiley guy outside. Yeah. It looks like kind of a little hole in the wall place, but it's great, and it's always very busy.
Right, which is good.
Great. Is what you want with sushi and poke places. So it's
Key tip for any of you that haven't tried sushi or poke: you want something with a heavy stream of people coming in and out.
Yeah.
That way, you're sure that the product is fresh. So if you're dining out in this city, where are you going? What do you and your wife like to do? Albeit you got 3-year-old kids, I'm assuming you're not dining out too often. But when you have that ability, where are you going?
It could be, if we're dining out, kind of, just myself and her, or I'm going out with friends and things.
Right.
A lot of the nice ones. Nightingale, I like.
Okay.
I like the St. Lawrence and things. They're doing great things there.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously having a 3-year-old, we end up going to White Spot a lot and things.
Yeah. What's your go-to White Spot order?
It has to be the double with a Caesar.
Double with a Caesar.
Yeah.
The salad or the drink?
The Caesar salad.
Okay.
Yeah. I still haven't gone into Caesar drinks yet. I find that a bit weird.
That you haven't been here long enough that it's affected you.
It's like drinking seawater. It's kind of gross. Just reminds me of swallowing too much seawater when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about us and clamato juice, but it's something that I've grown up with. So very, very common for me. Speaking of having a 3-year-old and speaking of food, I'm sure there's people that are listening or watching that maybe have kids or are having kids like myself. When it comes to the opportunity to start introducing foods to them, what have you found your son is really receptive to, or what do you recommend parents do as far as when it comes to bridging that gap between mom and then pureed food to like real solid food?
Yeah. With puree food, it was just a matter of we would just buy nice local kind of organic stuff if we could. We would freeze. So if you got yourself a blender or anything, make big batches of puree, whether it's kind of apple, it could be, you can do pumpkin, you can do kind of all different flavors. Make batches, freeze them, whether it's in ice cube trays or even just in little portion containers. That was great for us. And then pretty soon, by about kind of 1.5, he was eating pretty much what we were eating. So just smaller portions. So even right now, he gets what we eat.
I love that.
So we could go out for sushi. We're eating, like a Sunday roast, and it's chicken and roast potatoes and carrots and broccoli or something. He'll get that as well.
Nice.
He doesn't always want to eat it, but if we tend not to give him the option. So when he's hungry, he'll eat. It's not a matter of giving in and giving him chicken nuggets. He doesn't need to have those.
Yeah, amazing. So what do you say? I don't want to create any drama or tension here for anybody, but what do you say to the listeners that may currently have a small child, or like myself, are about to have a kid, and they say, you know what, Tim, that's cool. You're a chef. You know how to do all this. I just don't have the time. So when someone says they don't have the time, what is your response to that?
I first find that a little bit sad. I think that, they don't have time. I mean, it's your child at the end of the day. I mean, I think that you can try and make some effort, whether it's making, like a pot of soup once a week, or a shepherd's pie once a week, and freezing it, put it into containers and things. I think that anytime a child is brought up around that and is going to see that, I think that's a huge part. I mean, we don't spend a lot of time together as a complete family because I work, my wife works and things. But one thing we do try and do is eat together at least once or twice a week, where we sit down. We talk. It's I think to me that's a big part of the family community.
Amazing. Yeah, so, it has to be.
Yeah.
My father he's asked me many times, magic wand. If you had a magic wand, what would? So a question for you I have is, 5 years from now, magic wand situation, what does your life look like professionally, personally, all those things? What is Tim Evans doing with his magic wand 5 years from now?
I think I'd definitely like to pursue the jerky a little bit more. I mean, my goal in life, if I'm in Vancouver, is to one day hopefully have a house that has a yard.
Right.
I hate
amazing.
that. I mean, I always kind of grew up with yards in the UK and things, and it was like a normality that everybody had a garden, and I find it really weird out here that people don't.
Yeah.
And I think having a young son, that's something that there's some great city parks here and things, but it's nothing like being able to be out in the garden, have a barbecue, have a bottle of wine, watch your kid play on the climbing frame. That's a huge thing.
So then, what would that growth have to be for the jerky company? Do you think it's something like being picked up by one of the major buyers? I think
it would be. I think it's. I think that's the way you kind of are going to get, kind of grow most businesses. Is you need to find somebody that kind of believes in the product you're trying to do without. And I think as somebody that's producing it, we want to hopefully partner with somebody that believes in us and respects the integrity of what we're trying to do and not cheapen it or kind of process it in any way. And I'd rather make a little bit of money bit at a time rather than one lump sum and kind of sell out, I guess. So
controversial question, perhaps. In 5 years from now, are you still in a kitchen?
I don't know. I shouldn't answer that. I still work for somebody. I don't know. I mean, it's something that worries me on a daily basis. What do I do? You don't see old cooks in kitchens, and I don't know where we go. So that's the worrying thing. I mean, I'm 36 now.
Right.
If I don't own my own place, I mean, there aren't many 50, 60-year-olds on a working on a line, and I'm going to not be able to retire till I'm 70 years of age. So I really don't know. That's something I need to think about maybe a little bit more seriously.
Right, so we'll check in with Tim. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, cheers.
We'll check in with Tim in 5 years to see if he'll be 41, and we'll hold him accountable that he's not on the line.
Okay, perfect.
That he's on his back patio, drinking. Would you be drinking rosé on a day like today? What would you be drinking?
That sounds good. Yeah, rosé is perfect. For
rosé,
like today,
and then watching rosé with your wife, and then watching your son play.
Sounds good. 5
years from now. Okay, we're going to hold him accountable to that. So 2000 and...
Was that 23?
23.
Yeah.
2023, we're coming after you.
Okay, sounds good.
Before we wrap up, I do have a couple of questions for you, and I never prompt anyone, so this is going to stress you out just a little bit, I'm sure. But the podcast is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have two questions for you. The first one is, what is 1 to a half a dozen, so 6, what is 1 to a half a dozen must-haves? So something that you have done in your life or eaten in your life or experienced in your life that you can share with the listeners that they have to do. 1 to 6 of Tim's must-haves.
Oh, gosh. No, you really put me on the spot.
Yeah, anything. Could be like a trip you took somewhere.
Yeah,
It could be a plate you had. It could be an
Yeah.
ingredient you cook with. It could be a knife that you bought.
You know what? I think that okay. We'll start with the restaurant one to start with. So I went and ate at the Fat Duck.
Oh, amazing.
In the UK a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Really not like any other restaurant I've ever been to. That was an incredible experience. It was, I mean, ridiculously expensive, but if you ever get a chance to do that,
Shout
get on the
out
wait
to the
list.
Fat Duck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure
amazing.
Heston's listening.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you never know.
Exactly. Definitely travel, I think, while you can.
Okay.
That was something that I was lucky enough to do, especially if you're in this industry and you're a chef and you're a young chef.
Mm-hmm.
The one great thing about this industry is we can do what we do anywhere.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunity for us.
Right.
So that's definitely something I would say to do. I would say spend as much time outside as you can. That's definitely something that I find makes me happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, especially being indoors so much, working in kitchens, I find that's important. How many is that?
That's 3.
That's 3. I was just saying it has to be at least 5.
Yeah. No, you can do 1 to 6.
Yeah,
you can do 3. You can stop on
Cool.
3 if you want.
Okay, let's stop on 3.
Okay, cool. And then the second question is the half a dozen haven't yet. So 1 to half a dozen things you haven't done yet, whether it is go back to the Fat Duck, whether it's another restaurant you want to try out, whether it's a piece of kitchen equipment you want to purchase, whether it's a take over the world when it comes to beef jerky. 1 to half a dozen things you haven't done yet.
Haven't done. Okay, I'd always love to travel to Asia, so I'd love to go to Japan, especially.
Look out, Asia. He's coming for you.
Yeah. Hopefully that'll happen one day. I would love to have a combi oven here.
Okay.
It's something that would help out a little bit.
If any of the genies out there, the
exactly.
combi genies are
Wants to
listening,
imagine
come hit them up with a combi oven.
And yeah, I think just kind of grow my business and hopefully be successful and make sure I've got a sustainable life for myself and my family, and everyone's happy and healthy.
I like that. Happy and healthy. It's 2 of my favorite things. I want to recognize you, Tim, for 1, again, setting aside time to do this, and 2, for always being so kind and so easy to chat with and work with. Something I found my exposure in this industry with chefs, it can be the exact opposite of that. I find a lot of times, and it's a generalization, but a lot of times people in your roles can be a little bit tough to deal with and a little bit unforgiving. So I want to recognize you for being a change in the industry that I think is fantastic. And I also want to congratulate you for the growth that I've seen you go through, from selling you Velux vinegars to now where you're at today, where you've found a great space to work in. And now you're also going down the path of this entrepreneurial endeavor, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So thank you again. And I really do appreciate what you're doing and respect you as a person and as a chef. So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in and having a chat.
No, my absolute pleasure. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, be sure to tune in again next week for a new episode where we sit down and chat everything hospitality. And until next time, be good and do good.